So we're here with Maps, Advice and Stories with Ben Lamdin, aka Nostalgia 77. Hey Ben, how you doing?
Oh, good, thank you.
And we're doing this on the actual day, the release date of your latest album, When the Light's Gone, which is out today, in fact, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Do you know what album that is? Number under Nostalgia 77?
Uh, I don't well, not really, not
Okay.
precisely.
Yeah.
Um, maybe 10. The
Yeah.
or well, it's probably three, six. It's maybe like the kind of sixth album where it was kind of where I kind of did most of it, and where it's kind of maybe loosely song based, and then I don't know how many other ones there have been. There have been five or six other albums which are
Yeah.
more like on the jazz side
Yeah.
of things.
Yeah. So just before this, I was getting everything together with all the music that we've released on Tru Thoughts, which I knew it was a lot, but when you're getting it all together and compiling it, it was like, oh yeah, there is, we work with you quite a bit. So we're gonna try and get into the story of all the releases that we've done at Tru Thoughts chronologically. So I guess the place I'm going to start is this one, which was the first 7-inch we put out, which was Brother. So I mean, what are your memories of signing to True Thoughts? Because I've probably got a story that I can share, but I'm curious about how you remember the relationship and starting with us. So,
Well, well, I think I would. I think I'd been at college in Brighton. I'd just finished college down there, and I had a good friend from Oxford where I grew up, Nathaniel Pern, who did the music under the name Natural Self, and we'd always been kind of enthusiastic about records and wanted to try and make music. So we started doing some bits, and I think he did a single with you, and was like, "Oh, well, you can come and let's let's try and talk to Rob and Paul at True Thoughts," and that's how that came about. But
yeah,
I just remember at that time in Brighton there was like Nathaniel and Will, who did the Quantic stuff, and there were just like a lot of us who were kind of into, say, like somewhere between the kind of sampling culture kind of music and but interested in like live music as well. So I guess there was a little kind of crowd of people who had that kind of taste in common and kind of approach in common and
yeah. There, there was a little buzz going on, wasn't there, at that time? And so I'll paint a picture. I guess in Brighton there was a real big acid jazz scene, and then what's now called trip hop, that James Lavelle sort of Mo Wax type scene. Then Big Beat had come along in the late 90s, and there was, I guess a big shift, and that became a sort of international sound. And in Brighton, it really, became big, and then that began to sort of fizzle out in its own way a little bit. And we started doing the record label in the night. We were building up trying to do something. And I guess there was this middle world going on that was it wasn't there was what was termed new jazz. I always hated that phrase, but it was producers who had a jazz influence and it's a bit more musical, but it was, I guess, a bit of samples, a bit of musicality and all that. Some of it was maybe a bit lighter, but what was going on that we were finding was working for us quite nicely was there was this sort of crunchy drum sound, sample drums, but also people want who, I guess, with all of you, you all played a bit of music as well. You play guitars, or you wanted to have a bit of real musicality on there. And then at that time, and I guess, I mean, this is why, I mean, it was on a 45 7-inch vinyl, but at the time, I remember our distribute when we started saying to our distributor with the first Bonobo album, oh, we want to put a track out on a 7-inch, and they're going, oh, why are you going to do that? Because HMV won't stock it. Who has 7 inches? It's only indie bands. And we were trying to explain, oh no, there's a little scene that we think is bubbling. And in fact, these first couple of releases that we did with you and with Nathaniel, Quantic did the Quantic Soul Orchestra, they were flying out. We could press up 1,000 copies and they were selling out quite quick.
yeah.
I mean, in hindsight, it was like, felt like a license to, just we could be very creative, and it wasn't about how many social media followers have you got. There was just a network. There was a magazine called Big Daddy magazine
That's
that really
right.
got
Yeah.
behind what you were doing as well. And it was like, oh right, this is great. We were just putting out these sort of dance floor tunes, testing them out at our club night in Brighton, and it just felt there was like a real good energy.
Yeah, I mean,
Having it.
I think it was like, I remember I had a good friend in America who I went to stay with, and he was doing the filming for, when uh, Shadow and Cut Chemist did these kind of sevens only tours. It was like one was called Product Placement, the other one I'm trying to remember. Anyway, there were these like tours where all sevens,
Yeah,
like in the States and over here. I think they brought the show over here as
yeah,
well, and Keb Darge was kind of part of that, and Dante, who was amazing at there was like a little network of people who were really committed to uncovering this music. I guess the internet was
yeah,
just starting, but
yeah,
really what most of what people were finding, they were finding by traveling around and uncovering the music. So I don't know. I think that there was like it was a very like the kind of seven was like a really like, but it was kind of dear to our hearts, really. Do you know what I mean? Because it kind of
yeah,
represented that, even though the tunes, some of the music, I mean, none of the music I made at that time was really like deep funk or
yeah,
soul or anything. Probably now I make music that's close to that than.
yeah,
But I think just the object
yeah.
was kind of dear to our hearts because that was the format that contained all this music that was so exciting to us.
And it was we were having great fun with it, weren't we? And there was an infrastructure that you were able to, there was really great record shops all across the country, especially shops like Fat City and or in Nottingham or in Bristol. There were brilliant record
Yeah,
shops who would push the music for you. It wasn't necessarily about we weren't relying on getting reviews. I mean, really, Big Daddy magazine, a little bit with Straight No Chaser, but that was about it that we could rely on
yeah,
in the press to talk about things. And obviously DJs who were playing it. I do just want to quickly bring up Nathaniel as well
yeah,
because as well as making the link up with you to us, he also did the same with Quantic. He booked Will to play in Brighton, and Will asked to make an intro. So Nathaniel with two very important artists in the label, made the link, and of course we worked with him with Natural Self. So that that was great fun, and we were really enjoying this, and things were flowing out. And to paint the picture, I mean, I may be saying my opinion on what was going on. You then said, and we were like just having fun. We were doing something. We found like a niche that was really working for us and selling well. At the time, UK jazz, I guess, isn't the way it is today. It was a maybe had there'd been the acid jazz thing, which had maybe gone one way. It wasn't quite. There wasn't necessarily a new generation making jazz that was really referencing what was going on as far as I think our generation, I'm a little bit older than you, so my generation, your generation. So as I recall, you were doing this stuff, and I was like, "Oh, have you got any more? We want to do an album." And then you called me up and said, "Oh, well, but I sort of would have got this idea to do a jazz album, and it's called Songs for My Funeral." And I guess, do you recall that? Is that what was going on with
well, I
you?
think it was. I think I just kind of gone down a little bit of. I mean, again, I think like record collecting was kind of the way in, and I think I just got into. I mean, I'd kind of been into the music, but in a fairly ignorant way. But I found that to make that, I mean, I just started kind of collecting music from the kind of avant-garde scene and more like jazz records, some British jazz things which were less known at that time, and there were people like Jazzman Gerald who were already selling. They were interested in selling that Nick the record in Brighton. There were people who knew the music through dealing the records, and you could kind of get an insight there. And there was an amazing shop in Oxford when I lived there called Avid Records, where they bought a huge collection of a journalist who lived in Oxfordshire, and they just had it was an old piano shop, and they just but it like at a certain point it just filled up, and there was all jazz records, and there were things like these kind of Keith Tippett records, and so you kind of followed the thread across these, and that ended up being the kind of influence for the first, I guess the first, yeah, the
Yeah, so
first
that
mate,
so we did that.
the first
Yeah,
album
we did it
was a
on
heavy.
vinyl and
Look at that.
CD. Yeah,
Yeah,
and at the time, it felt different to me. There wasn't really anybody, I guess, your generation really coming in. That was, I sort of say this hip hop sensibility because it was there was a roots of like '90s hip hop and samples and all of that. But you were really there was not that this necessarily sounded like that, but there was a reference that
Yeah, there was.
in the DNA within what you were doing was
I
there. I
mean,
felt,
totally. I mean, it
yeah,
was like it was all kind of built in the computer, and it was basically like
yeah,
kind of that kind of bedrock
yeah,
of like um, kind of I guess like someone probably closer to someone like DJ Shadow or
yeah,
DJ Cam or like those kind of um, Mowaxy kind of
yeah,
producers. But I guess the palette was all kind of jazz and slightly kind of free jazz, avant-garde
yeah.
kind of things mixed in. So I guess that's what kind of started to kind of push me in that direction, if you like. But I guess we just, I mean, I think you kind of can't really choose. You don't necessarily choose what you like or what like appeals to you. Do you know what I mean? You just hear something and you're like, oh, I like that,
Yeah.
and off you go.
Yeah, and I liked it for us as a label. It was really good because what we had, it just gave us another different direction for an artist to just because there was a lot of jazzy things going on, or we like jazz, and you could there's a little reference. But I felt with songs for you for my funeral, you were really like. I'm going to go into that world. And I guess it was just you beginning, it was, I guess, a debut album. We were still, at that stage as a record label, we were very much, although Bonobo had been selling well and Will was doing okay, we were still really investing pretty much every penny we were doing. We were still living off our club nights. So every penny we were making, we were just trying to build up the label and see what we could invest. And I guess after that is, it's The Garden came through. Is that right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, was it Hope Sweet came first?
No, I think then
Or
it's
was the God?
then it was the garden.
Yeah. So
I think
and that was you really working, getting together with musicians, wasn't it, to record
that was
properly?
like starting. I think Will was like Will was kind of a, a big. Well, I think both. I think all the other guys, like they were like uh, Cy did the Bonobo stuff, and Will. They were both kind of starting to rope musicians in, and you started to see that just kind of opened up that kind of opened the playing field. So I did that record, and it was a kind of mixture of like a mixture of things. Do you know what I mean? It still, I guess, still had the kind of groove sampled
Yeah.
in the computer, kind of lockdown um, uh, drums to it,
Yeah.
but it started to have little bits of solo, little bits of keys, things. Um, but I wish I could say that I had it all planned out, but essentially,
You.
with those records, do you know what I mean? Completely like I didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
You're just kind of following your nose. You're like,
Yeah.
wow, I could try that. I didn't know,
Yeah.
you know, I didn't know which end of a microphone you were supposed to use. I don't
And
know.
and you were really learning your craft as well, weren't you? With as you were starting on this
Well,
album,
I
beginning to
mean, I definitely started.
but I mean, what I remember is we had this, and this was ready to go, and there was the tune Cheney Lane, and it was like, I mean, I think at that time I was still mainly playing vinyl, but I took a CD player out to the club and was beginning to play that out at the club from a CDR, and that was really good. And the album wasn't out yet, and then we got a message. I remember getting a message for Giles because I think it was towards the end of the year. This was planned before, and Giles just said, "If you've got any music coming out next year, could you just send it to me?" And then I remember, I think I called you up. I would have called you up and said, "Look, should we just send it really early?" And obviously Giles was super excited about it. I think he did a little rewind on the show, and I think he then really began to really see what you would do, what you were trying to do. It
Yeah, I
felt like
think
that that was like, okay, this is what you are as an artist are trying to do. And Giles really came in on
yeah, as
that
I
side.
remember, maybe yeah, because I guess the Hope Suite thing maybe came after that,
Yeah,
or but I get slightly confused. But there was like I guess like two things happened around that time. One was that you guys did the thing with Ubiquity,
Yes.
and so that record went out in America as well,
Yeah. So
which
we
obviously,
licensed the release, to them.
yeah.
Yeah.
So and then I think that just kind of opened things up, and then I did the tune with Alice because we there were a few of us were doing kind of just for the club night.
Yeah.
We were doing these kind of reversions
Yeah.
pre, as we like to say, pre what was his name? Mark Ronson.
Yes.
The
It
pre
actually
Mark
was,
Ronson.
wasn't it? I forgot about that.
The
Yeah.
pre Mark Ronson versus so Will did some and Al did some
Yeah.
and Nathaniel did a great Erica Badu one.
Yeah, yeah.
And
We were sort of doing little white label, limited edition presses on that, and I remember you called him up, which it was either the week or the second week Seven Nation Army was released by the White Stripes. It was very early, wasn't it? Because I'm fairly certain you said, "Oh, have you heard that tune? I'm thinking of covering it." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that would be really good." But it was very soon after it came out that you had the idea. It wasn't like Seven Nation Army today is, of course, everybody
it's
knows
a,
it. But at the time, it was like,
yeah, I mean
yeah,
it was still a massive tune, wasn't
yeah,
it? It was still
yeah,
a massive tune.
yeah,
And uh, that so I would just remember like thinking, oh well, I'll have a go at that. I never recorded a cover or anything, and but asked Alice. Alice was up for it. I think she came to my. I had a flat on. Oh, there you go.
yeah.
I had a flat on Queen's Road in Brighton, very up, right up the top. And she came round to the flat, and I think she was round for about an hour. Totally smashed out the vocal. Complete. I mean, it's really, to be honest, it's really down to her that that is as good as it is um, because her performance. But you know, she has just got so much energy and
And
so
but
that was
it was a good version at the time, and I think, and I remember you sent it to me, and I'm like, oh no, we can't put this out as a white label. We've got to release this properly because it's just too good. So I think that's what we ended
yeah
up doing. It was like, and of course at the time it just really picked up. It's funny because you're saying that. My recollection is that the Cheney Lane thing was before that, but I looked on Discogs. I don't know whether Discogs is right. Discogs has Seven Nation Army being first,
yeah.
and then
I
us
think
doing, yeah. So
yeah, I think we. So I think it was the Seven Nation Army thing, and then I think you were like, you have to put it on the album, and I think I was like, oh, I can't do that. It doesn't fit with the like jazz
yeah,
vibes. And of course, as it turns out, you were completely correct. And that's obviously it gives you sometimes you need to like little savvy things. I mean, I'd say generally in my career, it's been more self-sabotage than like savvy moves. But like,
yeah. I think you were pretty good. You were pretty open. I mean, I said to you, I said, look, I think, look, we might sell a couple of thousand as a jazz album, or if we're lucky, we could do five. But I was saying that the numbers that we were doing with other writers and said, I think if we just put seven, eight, and also that's probably, iTunes isn't solid, individual downloads aren't solid. So if people
yeah,
like a song, they're buying an album for one song and then getting
yeah,
into the rest of the album. And I think that's the bit you made it a double bass version, didn't you, on the album, and then the
that's
12
it.
inch had a normal bass on it.
That's
On
it.
it.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Then that's right. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
That's
I
right.
appreciate that. Look, we try and be as open as possible. If you said you can't do it, we wouldn't have put it on
No,
there,
no, no.
that's the thing. But obviously for us, at that moment in time, financially, it was a real asset to what we're doing because we can start saying to people, like, look, we put out a jazz album that sold X amount, and, that's what we were trying to let everybody know. Look, Bonobo's selling, tens of thousands, Quantic's selling tens of thousands, Alice has sold 20,000, and Nostalgia's selling tens of thousands. We was beginning to be able to start saying that to people where people were thinking we were an underground Brighton boutique label, and we're not. People love this music. People love this music and are buying it. So
Yeah.
I think But with you, I think that's the one thing I always felt you would put your heels into the ground on certain things, and it was like, okay, that's the way it's got to be. And but also I think we quite enjoyed it. Like you wanted, like even I mean, we did the Hope Suite. You did an individual handprint, some bespoke,
Yeah.
I think a limited edition number, which is one of them. And then we did the full version, and that has got, that's got Lizzie Parks on it, and Giles really picked up on this, which was again doubling down on a real jazz vocal project, wasn't it? It
Yeah, I
wasn't
think that's the,
jazzy.
that. I
Yeah,
think that's the first time it. I think that's when. I think it was. Yeah, I think it's probably like Hope Suite where I think I was at. I think maybe that was when he kind of called me up and he was like, you could tell he was like very excited about that that sound kind of having like a live kind of
yeah,
existing. I
yeah,
think really because I mean there were people. Two banks of four people like there was like a little scene of
yeah,
people um pushing that sound
yeah,
but it was like a very small scene
yeah,
um and it's really a chance meeting with someone who introduced me to a trumpet player who was on the Garden who did stuff on the Garden, this guy Kelsey Jones. And he I tell you actually how I met him. There's a guy called Hugo Mendes who now runs Soundway Records. He's the A&R at Soundway, and he was in Brighton at that time as well. And him and a guy called Jono, who played on Seven Nation Army, would DJ. They'd do like Friday nights at the Ocean Rooms or somewhere like that. So we were all hanging out, and through Jono I met Kelsey. It's a funny world. Who played the trumpet, and then he was like, "Oh, we should do a live band." And through him, I met, and he knew some people because he'd been very good when he was very young, but then he was training to be a doctor, and he got Riaan, who I work with now, and other amazing people like who was there. A guy called Ivo Neem was there. He's an amazing piano player. They were far too good for me. Do you know what I mean? They were far too good. We had this rehearsal which was disastrous, and you know what I mean. It was like it was a disaster. I couldn't. I was like, I'll give it. I'll give up. Can't do a live band. But I got on with Riaan, and Riaan was like, no, we should do it. We should do it. I tried with different people, and that's how we kind of pivoted off into doing a live
and the
thing.
thing is you persevered with that, didn't you? So you've gone literally from bedroom studio, just almost a computer sampler type vibe, to right, I'm in a room with everybody are playing instruments now, and
Yeah.
we're going to do it this way. So, and that was a relatively quick turnaround, wasn't it? That's almost a couple of years, is that?
Yeah,
Or
I
even
guess it
less?
was a couple. I
Yeah,
guess it was a couple of years, but
yeah,
I mean, it was just. I think that's one of the good things about maybe being young is you don't really you don't really know if there's. I mean, some people are blessed that they know very young and they're very informed. I wasn't very informed.
yeah,
I didn't really know. I'd done bands as a kid, but like, you just think, well, I want to do that, so
yeah,
I'll try.
yeah. I think as I've got older, I've realised there's an element that you need to. I'd almost call it being a bit delusional, not in a bad way, but that you've just got a belief that you're going to try something, and if you look at, why are you even trying to do that? A lot of people won't even think to do that because it's like that just doesn't make any sense. Why, why are you going to be in a band with loads of people who can play instruments really well to make jazz, and but it works, and for some reason you don't have this fear, and I think there's always I think you need that element of ego, but look, already on this conversation you're being quite humble about what you're doing. I think you are a fantastic producer because you're able to get all of these elements together. And I think that can be the thing that sometimes is going on. There can be all these brilliant musicians or singers, but you need the person who really brings them together and has a vision, which I think that's what you've got. And you've got an ear of understanding the music, like far more than me. Like as an A&R, I think my skill at an A&R is signing people who are much more knowledgeable than me at music and don't need me to give advice on production or engineering. It's like, and
Well, but
I can just trust you. If you're telling me this is good and I like it, I'm going to be right. Okay, then it's good.
But I
It's
mean,
good.
that's
So
that's
yeah,
that's
yeah.
uh that's probably like a good. I mean, I think actually someone said that to me once. They were like, just make sure you're the worst person in the room, right? And if you're the worst person in the room, then you're winning because everyone else is bringing everyone else is all those people that are around you are bringing you up,
Yeah.
right? You don't want to be the best person in the room. That's a disaster,
That's
right?
amazing. I've never heard that before. That's a brilliant.
Do you know what I mean? If you're, I mean, do you want to spend all your time dragging people up?
Yeah,
No, like find like, and I think it can be intimidating. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
I've could think of several examples of feeling quite intimidated by situations or other musicians or just people who just you're just like wow you're so all over this. Do you
yeah,
know what I mean? But really, like if that's who you want.
yeah. And it was amazing. I remember the band you playing live at the Jazz Cafe, and I remember it was amazing. And I think that was the thing about the band; they were just so good. Like seeing that, because I think you sort of hit the ground running because you had these really great musicians. I hope. I'm sure Will wouldn't mind me saying this here, but his first incarnation of a live band with the Quantic Soul Orchestra was just sort of friends or people who could get to, because there weren't really budgets at that time for him to get. So it was like, look, you're willing to come and play and you'll get 30 quid in a ticket to a festival. Can you do it? So of course the levels of musicianship aren't at that level. But I remember with you when we were saying, can you go live? Look what's going on now. If you can get live, and you were saying, look, this is only going to work because it's jazz. If we have quality musicians, then of course I'm going to need to pay them, because you can't get those musicians unless you pay them because they're jobbing musicians. They've got another gig going on. So you really, and that was a good education for us, because we were, for me, we were just trying to just try and make it happen, try and make it happen. But you were really explaining calmly, which we sometimes need to hear, is like, you can't make magic happen, on a budget of £300, it's something with 10 musicians, it's not going to happen. You have to say no, or wait, or wait till
Yeah,
someone likes this
yeah,
project enough to want to book the band that will do it justice.
yeah.
So
But I think it was. I
yeah,
mean, I feel quite fortunate that the combination of having the label and the support and the interest in the label, and I think also just that it was easier to um, get paid. I think for gigs.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You could go and do all the things in Europe, and
Yeah,
there were no
pre-Brexit, it was,
pre-Brexit. It was
yeah,
like you could go and do one-off gigs in Europe and get paid okay for them. I mean, not a lot of money when there were eight of us traveling, but like people would do that. They would put the band on, and um, it's always been harder in the UK, but you could still get everybody a fee that was okay for
yeah,
them at that time. I mean, I think the crazy thing now is I talk to a lot. I haven't done gigs for a long time, but I talk to a lot of people who do gig regularly, and probably their fees are not massively different
yeah.
15 years
Gosh,
on.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Which is really, I mean, it's really challenging.
I mean, but that live show, I really remember that. It was really not nice to see. And I also remember, because at the time I'd just been to New Orleans and we were trying to sign this high brass band, and I bought lots of high brass band CDs that were in the local record shops then, and I was playing tunes from them, and then people in your band kept coming up going, oh, who's this? Who's this? And it was all the high brass band. I'm like, oh, it's good, we're looking stuck. But what was good for me was like, because obviously I really liked it, it's like, oh, like musicians who are really great are coming and asking who this is. So it was making me understand, because I was thinking, oh, this is brass band, and of course with Sexual Healing we knew there was a party tune there, but it was like, oh, these jazz musicians who are really into their jazz are coming and asking what this project is, because I was thinking of Hot 8 being very raw, compared to what I guess you were doing, and traditional as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I think musicians have like a great, in a way, can have a really great life. You know what I mean? And that it's something. I was someone this morning who was like just been in South Africa. He's like, well, music is. I make friends straight away. Do you know what I mean? I go and play music with people, and we're it's like we've been friends forever.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You fast forward the small talk sometimes with that, don't
Yeah,
you? So yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So with all of this going on, so you're getting into that, and then you're sort. you're moving into, I guess, like, is it like a free jazz type of thing that we're doing with projects like
Well,
this, and then there's the Octet project going on. What's
I think we did a couple of gigs.
yeah,
I mean, it might be insane. I think maybe even that Jazz Cafe CD that we put out might have been the first gig we did. I don't know, but there was we had this band. It was Octet, and it was me and Riaan and a piano player called Ross Stanley, and four horn players: Trevor Myers, Tom Allen, exactly on all these records. Mark Hanslip and a guy called Johnny Spool, and a drummer exactly on this record as well called Graham Fox, who sadly passed away um, quite a long time ago now. And I think at the same time I met Mike Pelanconi, friends in Brighton, the guy
okay,
Prince Fatty,
yeah,
and he was like, "I'll come and record." He was like, "I'll come and record your gig," and he came to the Jazz Cafe, recorded the gig, mixed it for me. He had a studio upstairs in a flat in Brighton, and that just kind of opened. I think that just kind of opened my eyes to like, well, we can record live. Do you know what I mean? This is, in a day you can record an album. So it was just and also just a different energy
yeah,
and a different experience. And I think that's what I was kind of pursuing at that time. It was like, oh, here's something new. Let me have a go at it. Let me try that. Um, and okay, right, now all these things that I can imagine,
yeah.
I can uh, we can make that happen. And
And and that was about sort of the engineering, the audio quality, as well as the musicians. You were beginning
yeah, I
to
mean,
understand what could be done there. Is that
yeah, I
right?
mean, you start to hear. I mean, I don't think I really understood that side of things yet, but it's almost just like someone opens a door onto something,
Yeah,
and I think that's what can happen because you never really know with music who's gonna turn up.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? You meet someone and they're like, okay, what about this? And it's
yeah,
like they open a door for you
yeah,
and show you like a set of like possibilities, right?
yeah.
Whatever. All right, so you do that, or we can make something like that. Okay, brilliant. Let's do that. Right, that would be great. Um,
And just for people, so I mean that's on vinyl, the Octet, because on I was just looking.
I don't have one of those, by the way. I was looking for one.
I think this is my only one. I'll double check if I've got another one. You can have it because I'm going through
Oh,
because that's what I noticed. I've only got a test pressing of the Prince Fatty 7 inch. I don't have finished copy.
I've got
That.
one of those. I've got one of those. I'll swap you.
Yeah, I think this is what happens. Especially, I mean, I was gigging so much around that time, so I was always taking vinyl with me, giving it to the local DJs or the promoters as well. And then this is what happens now. It's like, and sometimes I get so frustrated because I go onto Discogs and it's like, oh god, I'm gonna have to pay 30 quid to buy something. I still can never manage to do it. I just find it really
Yeah.
hard to buy something that's like I paid so much money to get this record out. Now I'm having to buy it again. So, but yeah, I think it's just the way it is. But so it's separate on as two different acts, but in a way, Nostalgia 77 Octet was, I guess, the live-ish incarnation of what was going on, and Nostalgia 77 was a studio, for want of a better word.
Yeah,
Would
it was
that be
more
right?
like
Yeah, yeah,
so Rian, who plays bass and writes a lot of things for the octet and has arranged a lot of things for me over the years. He really got his kind of teeth into it. He was good. He became like a really good friend, and also he became like someone who kind of just pushed me along. Do you know what I mean? Which I think when you're like, I think we all kind of maybe in the kind of freelance world of music, we all kind of need that. You need like allies and friends to kind of keep you in check sometimes. Anyway, he's been a great one for that with me, and just kind of going, no, have you done that? Do you know what I mean? Because we don't have, you don't have like a team of people a lot of the
yeah,
time. It's kind of you're on your own. So
yeah.
he was very keen to record and release as much live stuff as possible. So he kind of pushed me with that, with the octet, and we did the octet records. And then, yeah, I guess like with this, I guess I was starting to develop the songwriting side of things as well. So things like Everything Under the Sun had like more songs, and then after that, when we got to like Sleepwalking Society and the later stuff, I was so I guess that I kind of I guess really maybe for most of the time that Nostalgia 77 has run, it's kind of been like two things. It's been kind of uh, live or kind of collaborations with a group of musicians, and it's been probably slightly more personal projects that are maybe songwriting projects where I've just kind of put them together in my own time.
Okay. So I'm trying to do this chronologically-ish. So I
Yeah,
want to do, before we get into Everything Under the Sun, I want to get into, you did an album under the artist
yeah,
name The Broken Keys with Nathaniel, aka
yeah,
That's Yourself, and then you produced two Lizzy Parks
yeah.
albums, one after the other in succession. So that was around this time, isn't it? Before Everything Under the Sun, I'm thinking,
No, I
as I
think
recall. Ah,
probably just
ah,
after Everything Under the
ah,
Sun.
right.
I
Okay,
think because
okay.
I met Lizzy and she started doing the band, and
Yeah,
then she sang on Everything Under the Sun,
yeah.
and a woman called Beth Rowley sang two tunes
Yeah.
on Everything Under the Sun.
Ah, okay, okay. So we did the Lizzy Parks, and that was very much you getting into being a producer, really, wasn't it? With the Lizzy stuff, it was
Yeah, I mean
like
it was kind
Lizzy
of
was the front person, but yeah,
yeah, I mean in a way it was a kind of first foray into that
yeah,
really.
yeah,
And then the Broken Keys thing, it was that was because Nathaniel and I had done like we'd done bits of producing together.
yeah,
Um, but it was that was more like, oh, we both really into the kind of like funky rock kind of things.
yeah,
I love the cover for that record.
yeah. And it was a bit unusual as well, wasn't it? It was different for us at Tru Thoughts at the time, but I was like, I like this. It's a bit different. It
Yeah.
was well produced, and yeah, a
I mean,
rock thing, I guess.
I think again, it's that
But with
thing
the
of it's
drums were heavy as well, weren't
it
they?
was yeah,
So yeah, yeah,
it was
yeah,
definitely like it was
yeah,
definitely heavy
yeah,
drums.
yeah,
I think it was I mean, again, I think it's that thing of you're just like, oh, I really like that. I just want to have a go at it. In a way, you're kind of it's a kind of musical kind of chameleon
yeah.
kind of act in a way. Do you know what I mean? So uh,
And Lizzy, we put a little bit of budget into that, and you worked with strings and for that one, didn't
yeah,
you? So yeah,
that was a
that was
big
yeah,
that was a big one. And then I remember we always used to go to Midem,
oh yeah,
right, to do the
in France, yeah, yeah,
and here's a good story. So when we were doing the Lizzy things, um, and I think we'd just done the record, and there was a guy called Thomas who had a bar in Midem called Sun Seven, which was really, I mean, it was really fun
yeah,
to go there. Um, anyway, he absolutely fell for Lizzy. I think we went and did like a PA or something. She sang a load of the tunes, and he absolutely lost it for her. And um, and they got married. And she lives in the south of France now.
yeah.
So I think maybe she abandoned promoting albums for a life in the
Big up to
for life.
Lizzy because the Thomas and that sunset was great fun because the music industry was still a little bit big and bloated, and we used to go there. We never used to get passes, and Thomas gave us a night. We used to just do that. And we had a joke. You needed passes to get in. So if you come with your mid-end pass, you've got to pay €10 to get in. But if you remove it, it's free entry. We did a little joke like that. We just had, we had. I think we used to annoy a lot of the industry because we were just coming and telling people we're here. We are part of the music industry, whether you want us here or not. So
It was
yeah,
good. I thought it
yeah,
was good. It was good
good
fun
fun.
to do those
Yeah,
things.
and then we did. I'll show this as well. We did the
Yeah,
remixes for Lizzy Parks, which is a little homage to Wild Pitch, Diamond D on the label design. There's an Eric Lau remix and Nathaniel remix.
yeah, yeah.
Which they're
Well,
great remixes, both of those
yeah.
as well. Yeah, which they're brilliant. So within that. You did that, and then we got into to get the order right. So then it was here we go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then this is, yeah.
I can't remember whether that's first, but that was kind
Yeah,
of this one felt like that. I think yeah, we must have done like an octet record, and then I think I was like, all right, I got Mike to help me do a bit of recording and mix on the Everything Under the Sun.
yeah,
But I think that was like I kind of was then I was like, right, well, I want to produce things, keep things quite. I don't want it to be live, but I'd met all the guys, so there's like beautiful solos on that record from all the people who were in the octet, and Graham played drums, and so it's kind of like it's kind of all the guys who are in the octet,
yeah.
but just kind of micromanaged by me being uptight.
And the song element of you writing vocal songs was beginning to be part of Nostalgia 77 really as
Yeah,
well now, wasn't it? So
yeah,
yeah,
that was starting to be a thing,
yeah. As in
and I get
writing lyrics, just to be
yeah, I
clear.
don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
I
yeah,
guess I just starting to explore that, which has
yeah.
become actually in the fullness of time, it's become like a really big part of what I do, kind of for nostalgia and for other things, you know.
And then I think we did some remixes on that. We had Povo did a
Oh
remix,
yeah,
Bonobo did a remix as
that's
well.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it was interesting. It felt like a progression, and Bonobo did a sort of jazz and nova, broken beats, sort of deeper sounding remix, and Povo was quite a jazz dance type
yeah,
vibe on that
yeah. There
as
were all
well.
these
So
kind of,
yeah,
I guess there were all those kind of overlapping scenes at that time, wasn't
yeah,
there? There was
yeah,
like, and you know, people would play like the jazz dance things or the kind of jazzy house
yeah,
things, and it would, and you go to a lot of uh, clubs where people would play that, and they'd play old soul and funk,
yeah,
and really just
yeah.
mixing all the styles together.
Yeah, and you were always quite open. You were always pretty good with remix ideas, and we were just trying to
Yeah, I
do
mean,
things. So yeah, yeah,
uh, I never really kind of felt too kind of concerned about it really. I think like, you know, some I liked more than others, and
yeah,
but like
yeah,
but obviously that's how it is. But I think
yeah,
it's I mean again, I think it's a bit like with music. When you release music, you don't know where it's going to end up.
yeah,
You don't know if people are going to like one thing
yeah,
or another thing.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Imagine all those old guys who got sampled, you know, to pieces
yeah,
in one thing in you know in rap records or
yeah,
whatever. Did they? I mean, I think they didn't mind once they started getting paid. And
yeah,
but I kind of just think like, and now I kind of feel like, well, you make the music and you put it out, and if people want to version it, then they can go for that,
yeah,
and it kind of it will find its level. Do
yeah.
you know what I mean?
And we've always seen remixes as just part of a story in a campaign. Really, we were always thinking will that help us direct people to get towards the album, because that's always the key for us. Is the album is ground zero. That's where where we want people to end
Yeah,
up or start
I mean,
ultimately. I suppose. Yeah, yeah,
it's a good kind of business card, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah,
I mean, I think it. I mean, I think I found like later on when I was doing like more like recording jazz records for
yeah,
people, sometimes those things, if you did like a really good job and you just did a really good sound for people, I was like, well, this is a great. Sometimes we'd put the records out, we'd press some records ourselves just because you're like, well, listen to this. This sounds as good as anything out there, you know. And
yeah,
it's a business card.
yeah, yeah. So that's good. So we'll get into the
Oh yeah.
which what's the story? Let us know. I mean, obviously I remember the story, but how did this happen?
So
Because you
this is
mentioned Keith Tippett earlier when
yeah
you were discovering, but then you've got a chance to work
to
with him.
do
So
something with
yeah,
him. So
let me just say
there
that
was
out
a
loud. Sorry, Nostalgia 77, and then you did an album, the Nostalgia 77 sessions with Keith and Julie Tippett. That's how it came.
yeah.
Yeah,
So there was a I guess when I was doing the octet, I was interested in some of these um, older British composers. So I was interested in like Ian Carr's Nucleus and um, actually I think it might have been like DJ Format who lived down in Brighton. He put me onto uh, Nucleus, and then there was like Graham Collier. So I was interested in like trying to get in touch with some of these people to ask them for music or um, and Keith Tippett was another one who I was really into, and Riaan, I don't know if he'd done something with him or he'd played in a maybe he'd played in something that Keith was doing, but we met this other guy who there was a guy called Martin Levan who had worked weirdly for Andrew Lloyd Webber for years. He'd basically been the sound man for Andrew Lloyd Webber, and he'd been on a percentage for Andrew Lloyd Webber with all of the shows, and he was richer than God. And he bought a valley in Wales and built a studio. But it was very sad because he wanted to do a label and he just wanted to do creative projects in the kind of uh, he wanted to fund things and try and do a label and just do creative music basically. So um, he offered to do this record, and then it was kind of while we were up recording, he started having these problems with his ears, and all kind of neurological problem with his ears. He couldn't work anymore, and he didn't want to do the label under those circumstances. So we'd done the recording, and it couldn't be released with him. So we brought it to you, and you were good enough to.
Yeah, no, and we were great. I mean, we were happy to put it out. I mean, obviously it was under sad circumstances, but it was really exciting to actually, you know, have that project there. Obviously, we did. He asked for the same deal that he got with Andrew Lloyd Webber for us, which is a small percentage. And I think even I said, he's not really going to get anything. With that,
Yeah, I don't think he needed money at that point.
Yeah. I think we
But
did that type of deal. As I recall, I can't remember, but it was like, yeah, it was just one of those things. But it's amazing, and also on this, I mean, you've done so much great music that I've played out in DJ sets, played on the radio, so much music over the years. But that track, Four Whispers for Archie's Chair, it's such a minimal, but there is something so magical about that track as well.
yeah,
And I still regularly play it on the radio. I find it is like it's a real reset tune.
I
It's
mean,
amazing.
that's one of Keith's little pieces, and
Yeah,
he'd quite often write these kind of little miniatures, and it's an amazing. It's just a very intense, committed thing. But I think that's what Keith is really interesting. I mean, was really interesting in that way that he was like jazz. He was from a jazz tradition, but he lived through this kind of transition between people being into jazz, into like coming from like swing music, right? And then this whole thing that happened with kind of free improvisation and the kind of European improvisation scene, where I mean, he just kind of crossed those, in his life, he really kind of crossed those streams, but he had it. Do you know what I mean? And no question, he had the kind of like committed. He had a commitment to music. Do you know what I mean? It was zero bullshit, and it was like he could do it. Do you know what I mean? He had the
yeah,
touch and the intention.
yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
And it's amazing, you got to work with him. I mean, I like that you were referencing earlier, as I mentioned already, and then you actually get to record with someone who's been so influential. And for me, I always love like when different generations record together. I think there's always something really special about that. And in that moment of time, there was a great buzz about what you were doing and what was going on. And you really were. When I felt that with that release, we were bringing another generation. Look, like go and explore this music. It allows us to tell the story of what's gone on before, which
Yeah.
I love as a record label that we can do sometimes when artists connect like you did on
I think
this.
that was a good it was a good lesson. I mean, it was very difficult. I mean, it wasn't like he wasn't a kind of a compromising character. Do you know what I mean? Quite the opposite, and which was the great thing about him. So it was a challenge to for I think I was probably only like 26 or something, and
Oh
I
wow.
had no right to tell him anything. But so it was like it was quite difficult. Um, but it was also a lesson I think for me in that I was really like, and as a lot of us are who come from maybe like a record collecting or a production background, I really was like, I want to make one of those records, like because his wife Julie had done these amazing records with Brian Auger and her own when she was Julie Driscoll, her own amazing kind of soul records, and I was like, oh, we can do that, and of course they don't want to do that because they've done that, right? And that was like that was I learnt that on that session that is like you have to even if you think you want to make something and you're like, oh well, this would be more popular or this would be better, if it's not what the people want to do, you can't do it. Do you know what I mean? You have to let people be who they are at this time. Do you know what I mean? Where are we now? What do we want to do? And it might not be the thing that you've kind of romanticized in your head, but that's sometimes that's tough.
And I think, I mean, you dealt with all of that, away with, the business side. But I remember as we put that out, Julie gave a demo to pass to me to listen to. And I remember after 2 or 3 days, you were like, Julie's hassling me to listen to it. Can you listen to it? And I'm like, oh no, I'm really busy. I still get sent times, but even at that time, I was trying to. And I'm like, oh look, I listen to him. And then I remember you ended up passing my email to her or something, and then she really told me off, and I was like, "Oh God, I better listen to her." I think it took me a couple of days after she emailed me to get down to listen, and it wasn't quite for us. And I just replied that, and then she sort of told me off. She goes, "Well, wish you could have told me earlier," but really told me off about this. And I felt like, God, that's taken me a week and a half to get back. I said, sometimes it's taken me through, but it was you give this pass. It's like you're so respectful for a generation. There was a part of me that also realised actually which is something I do now. Look, if someone who has done things in the music industry that I love and I do, it's like as soon as you can, stop everything, listen to the demo, and get back to them because they've paved the way for you. And that was the first time I was almost putting it amongst the pile. Like, let me get through it. But I understand now. Just sometimes do prioritise for those people. So
Well, I mean, they people do earn it. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then as we go through catalog, we were doing these series of one-offs, remixes, and B-side releases on the label. We done one with Bonobo and Quantic, so we did one with you, which is just, I guess, compiling some of the one-off things, some of the remixes that had you done together. We were always, for me, I always wanted to make sure the catalog was all in a place, and particularly with artists like you who are prolific. My view was always just make sure you know there's always a space that someone, if they like your music, they can begin to dig into it and find out, oh, that was released. And so
Yeah.
we did a CD compilation of things that were on 45s or one of 12 inches, or
Okay.
someone's done a
Cool.
remix. Um, and then we were getting into Sleepwalking Society.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, after
So I
that.
guess that was like so I guess the one thing that happened kind of between say like the albums that you've shown actually really it happened when we were recording the Weapons of Jazz record. um the uh our friend the drummer Graham became very ill. He had a kind of he suffered from like a schizophrenia, um and which he didn't recover from. um so there was a kind of like natural hiatus at that point. You know what I mean? I think also we'd done like a lot of we'd done a fair bit of touring with the Octet. People had kind of and I think I'd moved up to London at that point, and was probably was just about to start a family, I think, around that time. Anyway, you know, it's interesting. People when I met all the people in the Octet, they were all kind of really just fresh out of college, and or a couple of years out of college, and over that period, people started kind of drifting they kind of started to focus on, but what was their interest. Everybody kind of followed their thread, and that group of people kind of, I feel like, naturally kind of drifted, followed different paths. And I went to a gig of a band called the Golden Age of Steam, which was a drummer called Tim Giles, and a sax player called James Allsop. And I loved the gig. I'd actually seen James play a long time ago at a Graham Collier show. It was amazing, really very memorable when he was really young. And yeah, I was like, maybe these guys could do could try something with them. And they formed the kind of backbone of, with Riaan still and Ross still from the original Octet, that kind of formed the backbone of Sleepwalking Society and kind of most of the things I've done since then.
So it was a sort of going forward, which is just a natural thing that happens, isn't it? So we had the Taxidermist.
So Taxidermist was that was like a first kind of live recording with that group of people. I think the other thing that happened was probably in between. Taxidermist, good help. But actually, the other thing that probably happened between Keith and Julie and doing the Sleepwalking Society is I produced another record also for the same guy, Martin Levan, who had to close his studio, and he was going to do a record for this singer called Gilles Nichols.
Yes.
And so he was going to do that, and we stepped in to do the record with Jeb, which then you guys put out, and I think Jeb was one of those people who kind of opened a door in a way for me, and the door he opened was really into like song, kind of singer-songwriter or songwriting kind of world. He was, he really knew the kind of country soul history of American songwriters very well. Really great knowledge, and I think he
helped compile those with Ross Allen, the country soul compilations.
He did the country got soul with Ross Allen, and I think he helped. I think he also, I think he's done a lot of things like that, but I believe he helped early days of Numero. They did a compilation of Capsule, which was the Ohio soul label, and I think he helped them with that as well.
And then in the late 90s, he worked with Underworld. He did a Birdsong, a real classic tune. There was that beat sort of thing that was late 90s, early 2000s, soulful vocal with the beat.
When he came to London from America, he met Adrian Sherwood and helped Adrian Sherwood sell reggae records and go and buying up reggae records and things. And he still works with Adrian. So he's got this very kind of like Catholic career across like all these different styles of music. He loves different styles of music, but definitely doing a little record with him, and then I did another couple of records with him with Ross Allen. He was really like, he really kind of was like, oh look, here's like a whole world of songwriting which isn't, I don't know, it just kind of had something. There was something in it for me, because I'd done some songwriting which more like jazz, but I guess with the Sleepwalking Society, it settled into somewhere between folk and soul and jazz. That kind of little mixture.
Big up, Jim. He in fact just recently sent us a little email because we sent him his accounts, and he just said, thank you. He goes, you're one of the few labels that still does accounts on time, and with all the music, and he's had music everywhere as well. He's been quite prolific as well. But it was nice just to get that message, and we sort of feel sometimes like saying, well, I guess that's our job to do that. But thank you for appreciating it. So not
everyone does it.
So Jeb, yeah, you're moving into this thing, and then we're getting into. I mean, I guess there's the Journey Too Far. Come
Yeah,
that's
that's
there.
it. Yeah, so that was, I mean, again, that was like when we did the Sleepwalking Society, I met the singer Yosa, who actually just emailed me randomly and was like, I didn't know who I was going to record the vocals for that record with.
Ah,
I'd kind of written it. She emailed me. She liked the funeral record.
oh wow,
You know,
really?
she liked the first record. She was like, "Oh, I really like this that you did," and I was, "Can will you listen to some of my songs?" I was like, "Okay, that's nice." Uh, and she sent me two MP3s of little songs she'd made. And I was like, you know what? Maybe this would be, maybe she could do this. So it's again, it's like this funny world of you don't really know what's going to happen, and maybe I should be more proactive and be like, oh, I want to do this. But sometimes sometimes things come up
Come,
anyway. I've had a great, I've
but in a way, you're always throwing these things out, and then bringing these things come to you, don't they? As well, and I think there is a sort of almost an exchange that happens rather than you. Sometimes that's what you want is that little magic to come through. And I think the other thing is you're quite open, aren't you? You're actually listening to the things that come through. I'd imagine you are getting sent a lot of people saying, do you want to sing with you? But you are checking these things out, and you're not looking and saying, well, what am I going to get from this? Have you released things? It's just like, is there something there that's
yeah,
creatively can work, isn't it? You're looking for. So yeah,
less. You don't know until you don't know until you try, and sometimes
yeah,
it's great, and sometimes it's not. And
yeah, yeah. So we move, and then we get into. So this is
okay.
Nostalgia 77 and the Monster. So what's the logic
I mean, I
behind the
think
name
that's the.
change?
I think it's just a daft. I think it was just a daft, a daft idea, really. Like most of the ideas, daft idea. But that was like that's like a. I really love this record because it's There's a Keith Tippett tune on there actually. Thoughts to Jeff. But that was like that's Rian and James and Tim Ross and a great Italian trumpet player called Fulvio Segurta, who's done loads of different bits across things. And again, I think it's just like that. Um, when we used to do the gigs, so we did quite a lot of touring with the Sleepwalking Society, and less so, but a little bit with A Journey Too Far. We were still going to Europe pretty regularly, and had some disastrous van trips around Europe, which involved leaving vans in Austria and things like that. It was really, very hard work, I've got to say. Like, I have a great deal of admiration for people who like put together tours,
Yeah,
and it is not easy.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And especially a band. I mean, it's hard enough. Me as a DJ, I could do that and just about cope. But really, I know that as an artist, although as much as you're the band leader, you become the tour manager, don't you?
Yeah.
It's a lot of work for
I
the
mean,
leader of
our
the band,
van.
isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
I think when we toured Sleepwalking Society, the van broke down on the way to the last gig in Austria, and we abandoned it. Uh, Took all our instruments, got a cab, got the train, got to the gig 10 minutes before it started, and we had to fly back the next day. So it's. I think I was buying a house at the time, and it was just hemorrhaging money,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
So um, it's challenging. But we when we were doing those shows, they were a mixture of songs and then some instrumentals, which would really stretch, right? Do you know what I mean? So and all the guys in the band just really they can really just go. Do you know what I mean? Especially if there's adrenaline and the good audience. So they could be quite long gigs and quite out there. Really, really, really amazing fun, especially when you've been touring and everything gets like everyone's just not thinking about it; they're just playing. So that record, um, measures, has a bit of that.
yeah.
and then we did another record with pretty much the same lineup a couple of years ago that actually Jazzman
That's right.
Gerald
Yeah,
put
yeah.
out,
It's great.
and that's got that kind of thing again. And I think, in a way that's just for albums. It really seems to just make sense that you on the one hand you've got like these kind of jazz records that kind of stretch and are maybe closer to the live show,
Yeah.
and then the songs which feel like more focused in and
And then we did just trying to get everything up, but we did
oh
the
yeah
15, which was I guess like a equivalent of a best of, wasn't it? We did a sort of type release,
yeah
which was just at that time we were thinking, if people are sort of a gateway into what you're doing, and I think that was with there. And then also we should get
oh
into
yeah
the Prince Fatty versus Nostalgia. So you mentioned Mike, who is Prince Fatty,
yeah
was initially there, helped you record the live things, and then was this your idea or was this his idea? I
No, I
can't
think he
remember.
wanted he wanted
Yeah,
he wanted to do that.
yeah,
He was like, send me loads of different things, and I'll do dubs.
yeah,
That's kind of.
yeah,
I mean, he's an amazing engineer, amazing mixer. Um, but obviously, reggae is really his thing, and dub dub mix, that kind of that whole scene is really his thing. So he did that, which is really good. There's like a
yeah.
really nice, he gave lots of tunes a different lease of life.
Yeah, and we still I think there's a track that BBC Six Music still regularly play. Like even the other month, there was a random play of it
Oh
as
yeah,
well. It feels it's so it's taken it's got into another different world as well, which sometimes happens with songs. But we always get a list every week of radio plays that are taking place, and it's always funny just so regularly this is appearing. It's like
yeah,
it's just
that yeah that
has a life that just continues and continues. So yeah,
you don't you kind of you can't. I think like maybe now I can predict it a little bit better what people
yeah,
will get, but I don't
yeah,
think I was. I don't
yeah,
think I'm not that kind of producer,
yeah,
if you like. I think
yeah,
some people they've really got that kind of canny thing, and they can really like, no, this is like a kind of a popular move, or
yeah.
this is zeitgeist. I don't think I'm not sure I've ever had that. I think I'm just kind of like follow my nose and and try and respond to the music.
So that's the Tru Thoughts years, and we've got about 15, 20 minutes left. So I'm within all of this, though, you've just, in more recent years, you've just regularly kept working within music, within the UK jazz scene. You do production and engineering. Do you want to tell us a little bit about people you've worked with in more recent years and what you're doing on that
Yeah, I
side of
mean,
things?
I mean, I mean, I guess through starting to do the live recordings, I started going to a studio called Fish Factory, which is in northwest London, and has been kind of always a little bit of a hub for that music. And I mean, like before I went there, I think people like Tom Skinner, Jade Fox, um, the Invisible, the kind of guys around that band, the Invisible, were going there to record. I think like Jason Rebello, Pino, maybe Jason Yard, were kind of these characters were already using the studio. And over the years, it's been one of those places that's just kind of, it's just a good setting. Do you know what I mean? For that music, it's perfectly set up for recording acoustic music. Um, so that's been, and I started getting asked to record other people, either producing records or just engineering, mixing albums, and it's been great. It's been a kind of unexpected side to music and life for me, really. Um, really managed to meet, people who, like drummers like Lewis Maholo used to come there with different things. I recorded him a number of times. There's an amazing um, piano player called Pat Thomas, not the Ghanaian band leader, but a guy actually from Oxford who's more in the kind of avant-garde world. And then uh, and then I and then there's all obviously now I think because there's because there's so many amazing musicians coming through kind of out of college and um, or coming to London from abroad. Now you've kind of got the kind of new generations, like I guess like Ezra Collective. Like I recorded this album for Brownswood, which was this showcase of all the um, new bands like Kokoroko and Ezra Collective and who else was on that? Um, Brain's going now, but
But that new generation has come through. I was talking
yeah,
to Reese recently, and it was interesting. He said to me, he said it feels like the UK jazz scene is now, because of everything that's been going on, it's been consistent. It hasn't dipped in, it dipped out. It hasn't been this huge press thing where, oh, it's the jazz revival. It's just been so consistent that it feels like almost the equivalent to, I guess, UK rap or grime, that it's a consistent, it's just part of the UK fabric now that we have a jazz scene going
yeah.
on, which is probably something that I remember back in the days in the 90s, Russ Dewey saying to me, jazz just comes in and out of fashion and you just have to ride it, keep doing what you do. And then, sometimes it's out, but sometimes it's in. But it feels like it's been a bit more consistent over a longer period of time than I've ever known it, I feel.
I think there's different factors. I mean, there's a guy called Gareth Lecrae who's a flute player. I saw him this morning, and he said, right, well, when he wanted to go to college to study jazz, he's like my age. He's like, you could go to Leeds College of Music, the Royal Academy, maybe Middlesex. There were like three courses, but tiny number of places for people. Now there's that generation of people of say like my age and a bit older than me, I guess, have done like such an amazing. They've really committed to developing it, right? As developing the scene and developing the skills. So, it was a funny thing. Like when I met Femi from Ezra, I was like, oh right, where'd you go to school? Oh, I went to Enfield. And I was like, oh, maybe you know Tim Giles, who plays in Nostalgia. He's like, oh, he was my drum teacher. So you kind of you need like a critical mass of like people who who have developed those skills and then who can teach, right? Or that there's enough like gigs so that people can go and do gigs several times a week so that they can, it's like it's not an easy thing to learn. And this is so I think you've got that as a backdrop, and the education is whether it's education through like live settings and lots of gigs, or whether it's college or whatever. There's obviously problems with college as well as benefits, but like you need that mixing pot and enough people and feel like it's a thing, right? And then the flip side is I think that now jazz gives you like live music, and that challenge that it presents people gives them something that just doesn't exist in what most of our life is like, right? It's not computer or phone or AI world. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's a very different experience. It has a different quality to it, and I think people really love that, and they like,
Yeah.
they're smart because it's a better experience. It's a better
It feels there's such a natural infrastructure. I've just been at Brick Lane Jazz Festival myself last week, and there was, as well as seeing gigs and being on the conference, it was, look, Tomorrow's Warriors is established. You see Joe Almond-Jones on a panel, Steam Down on a panel, what they're doing, and they're talking. This is just normal. They're talking about who helped them. They're talking about who they're helping now. But
yeah.
this is just a natural. There's no stopping this thing. It's just really. And I like the idea that there's an element of it feels quite self-contained as well. It's not, of course, Arts Council and all that does help with all of that, but it feels like there's characters around who are just, we're not going to
Yeah, they're very
make sure
committed.
we're going to make sure this stays. Yeah.
There's another organisation called Connecticut Blocko, who kind of like work with really young kids, all these summer programs, and a lot of the people who do that feed into Tomorrow's Warriors. And then you've got the Jazz Refreshed people who are, and then you've got the other side of it, which the kind of slightly less maybe. Then you've got also lots of people all around the country who run like very grassroots jazz clubs, which put on all kinds of music. A lot of it's not very trendy, but you need like an ecosystem. Do you know what I mean? Because people need to be able to make a living, right? To continue practicing every day and performing every day. You need an ecosystem, same as you need the studios and the people and the publisher who creating money that keeps studios open and everything. You really need all the parts of the community to keep it ticking over.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, as we're drawing to a close, I mean, I always, I mean, for me, having worked with you, I've always liked the fact that you've just been so creative. You've almost just, as I said, you've always followed your own path and done what you've done. But I like even that when you not necessarily pivot, but you saw like it's hard gigging, and as you get older, of course, it's harder. As you have a family, it's harder. But you moved in towards the studio and all of that. For a new generation coming through, like what are there any sort of positive bits of advice that you could give to people that you've maybe have helped you that you've learned, or whether it's mistakes or positive things that you've seen that you maybe just did naturally, but they were really helpful to you to keep going and keep hanging in the
Yeah,
music
I mean, I,
industry. So
I mean, I always kind of weigh it up. I always think maybe like I was not like, I'd look at some people who were really just did their thing, and they just really focused on their thing, and they worked so hard on that, and I sometimes wonder whether I should have done that. I should have just been like, just do nostalgia albums, just tour that, just kind of hammer into that. But I mean, I think you have to do what you you feel enthusiastic about. Do you know what I mean? If you feel enthusiastic about something and you feel like that's going to reward you creatively, you have to follow you have to follow that. It might not be the best thing for business or career, but then I think then probably if that's not your motivation, then you should probably do something different. You know what I mean? If it's
yeah,
just earning money, then it's
yeah,
not a reliable uh, thing. I mean, I think the thing is just like you never know what something's. I think say yes to things is a good one. You can be very cautious. Oh, maybe I should do that. Maybe I shouldn't do that. I mean, I quite like saying yes to things, and not everything is great. Not everything is amazing, but you meet people and things happen. Do you know what I mean? Things happen. I mean, as long as you work, as long as you kind of, as long as you make sure you do your best. Do you know what I mean? You kind of got to work hard at it. It is hard, you do have to work hard.
yeah.
Um, but I mean, in advice, I mean, I think you gave good advice early on, which is like take care of, make sure you build a catalog. And I had like I think early days of doing nostalgia sound, I think I had like the forms for becoming a teacher on my desk pretty much every year, ready to fill out. Do you know what I mean? And something would come up. Either you'd get a little bit of royalties, or you'd get booked for some to produce something. And you do have to be kind of long termist about it,
Yeah,
and you do have to think, right, I'm going to build
yeah.
like catalog and royalties and
And being patient, isn't it? Which is, I think, what you did. I think you've always kept quality control good, but building up and being regular, isn't it? Trying to get music out as
yeah, I
quality
mean,
control, but don't let it sit on your hard drive. Don't record something and just let it be there.
try and
So
get on.
yeah.
I have got another album that's been on my hard drive for about a year,
So
which that's coming later this
yeah.
year. I'm clear. I'm cleaning
Yeah.
house.
Yeah, but I like that bit. I mean, what you've said about the teacher, because I mean, I remember I've never taken. I remember. I mean, it was only like a few years ago, and I'd come back from a gig, and I'd got a taxi back. And I remember in the morning saying to my wife, "Oh, you know, if it all goes wrong, maybe I'll become a taxi driver because I could just listen to music all day, can't I?" And then my wife is saying, "Well, you're just established. Why are you even thinking like that?" But I have this in my nature a bit like, don't take anything for granted. It's like you just don't know what's going to go on and you've got to be prepared. But there's also the bit about, but also do everything you can do to try and make it work, what you're doing in a creative space, on the business as well as the creative, balancing both of those worlds, isn't
Yeah,
it? So,
I mean,
yeah.
I think like I think it's a complete privilege, like to do music as a job. You know, I mean, it just if you as long as you still enjoy it, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I don't enjoy it, I won't do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Enjoy it and make the most of it.
Yeah. So the album When the Light's Gone is out now, which is a new album. So I've noticed the label is Third Stream. So is this away from Impossible Arc, or can we get into that quickly? Or is
It's
this a new
just
label,
quickly.
or is this?
So
Yeah,
we did Impossible Arc. Me and Rian did that, and that we put out kind of mainly things that we did together or things that our extended kind of group of musicians needed a home for. They were like, "Oh, can we put it out on the art?" Fine, put out things on there. But Third Stream is basically, I think, I wanted to do. I was conscious that I had some personal work. I had a couple of projects. I had this album. I had another album that's actually from before, which I'm going to release later this year. So a couple of albums of songs and a couple of other things in the pipeline, and they were more like things that I was driving. So I just thought I need one place that all of this sits, and it's my responsibility. And
yeah.
let's hope lovely people buy the record,
Yeah.
so I haven't got too many under the bed.
Yeah, and in this day and age, it's just you can do these things on you. It's a bit easier to get
I mean,
things and have things.
it's a very different. I mean, I guess I'm at a different point in in things, and also just like as you know, it's quite a different industry picture in a way. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I mean, now I can't imagine, to think back to find, you guys when I was in my early 20s, and yet and you were like, yeah, we'll make loads of CDs and loads of records and get them around the, you know, we you that was the only option. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't going to be able to manufacture
Yeah,
and distribute records and CDs around the place. So now it's a little easier to do that. The kind of all the band camps and the things that have come up through the internet
yeah,
make it
yeah.
kind of viable. So
And I love that.
also,
There's the reduction of the barrier to entry is good. I guess it's changed the financial arc. We were able. It was possibly a bit easier in inverted commas to make a living if you were making quality music that was connecting with people in that slightly larger. There was an infrastructure to be done, but I'd still rather have less of a barrier to entry that
I
more
mean,
people can get their music
I
out.
think less of a barrier to entry. I think the flip side of that is that the internet kind of promised to democratize everything,
Yeah,
but essentially it's
the
you know
algorithm's still telling you what to listen to, isn't it?
well
So
there's that, but also I think like we can't, do you know what I mean? Spotify's essentially, it's like almost a monopoly
yeah,
on streaming, right? 80% under any other kind of terms of a monopoly 20 years ago, it would have been deemed a monopoly. So so I think it's a shame now that really, like loads of parts of life, the money is being funneled into fewer and fewer pockets. And you know, I think those people in the music industry that have a lot of money should be a little bit more willing to spend it. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, everyone's going to end up poorer. We're going to
yeah,
end up poorer. And the same thing with, same thing with these kind of people who turn up, and do AI. It's like, you know, anyone who's saying that they're democratizing the producing music, they're not. That it's not. They're not being very honest when they when they sell it like that. They're just trying to sell something that is a kind of money funnel
Yeah.
for them.
But I think we still go forward. I think we have these things. I think particularly for me, I'm noticing when we first started the label, all the generation who are a bit older than me, what are you doing, Rob? You know, the labels like Euphonic and Grand Central were selling 100,000 albums. You're never going to be, and it was like, oh yeah, I know that, but I'm working that. I think I can sell a couple of thousand albums, and then maybe a bit more, you know, maybe 5,000. But the margins are so different now. But I don't know, it feels there's a bigger political thing with all of this, with Spotify and all of that, and the filtering of money, which is the wider politics, isn't it? And I'm sure people like us and the younger generation, we are being more vocal about this, and we are talking about this.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I
yeah,
think like the things with like the kind of, the I was following the debate about the small venues and that they're trying to kind of, get like a little levy from the
yeah,
really
Live
big
Nation should be paying
concerts.
that £1. Yeah,
I mean, like, um, yeah, I mean, I don't, this isn't a problem, this isn't just a problem with music, it's a kind of general
yeah,
problem. It's that people have been a little bit greedy,
yeah,
and that money needs to move around
yeah,
that money needs to be, it's a bit like someone told me a story about Elton John, right? Who I never thought of as rock and roll, but apparently he called up someone to ask them to do a gig, and he said, how much do you want? And he said, I don't know, he said 2 grand for the session or whatever. And Elton John said, I'll pay you double, right?
yes,
And it's like, you know, we need
yeah,
we need a little bit of, the music industry could be a bit more rock. It could be a little bit more rock and roll.
yeah,
It could be like, this is what music represents.
yeah,
This is what music is for people. Do you know what I mean? It's really not like your tax return. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? It's really like an amazing thing
yeah,
in our life, right? It's life. It can be life changing
yeah,
for people. It massively enriches the short amount of time that we have on Earth. Like, um, you need to value it.
yeah,
You need to invest in it. You need to see the value of it beyond
yeah,
money.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Because the money, it's music's value in money is pretty paltry,
yeah.
to be honest. It's
And that's the thing. I think that's what we have to continue to. I mean, in my own little world, I was still trying. I'll get sent a promo of something, but I'll still buy it because I know I like this. I've got sent it for free, but I've got to support the artist because
yeah,
if I'm not doing it, who's going to do it? You know, and
yeah,
hopefully there'll
yeah.
be 100 of me, and if 100 of us do it, there's suddenly £1,000 that's going to an
That's
artist if
it.
we buy their album, and it's like great, yeah,
I mean, I don't buy records like I used to, but I love booking a session with loads of musicians, and I love. Do you know what I mean? I'd really like to fill the room with musicians
yeah,
and give everyone and pay everyone for a
yeah.
day properly to be there is beautiful. I love that.
Okay. Look, that's been brilliant to speak to you, Ben. Thank you.
No,
So,
thank you.
yeah, yeah. So, like with everyone, just go and check out all Nostalgia 77 and associated work, basically, and especially the new album. Go and support, and it's on vinyl as well. The new album, isn't
Yeah, I
it?
did
So,
did a
yeah,
little
yeah,
run of vinyl, and
yeah.
going to do another record later this year. A few different things that need to get them out
Okay,
in the world.
brilliant.